Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be with you all. My name is Pam Lobley. I am based in New Jersey in the United States. And my story starts on a cold spring day, or I should say evening, several years ago in March. And I was tucking my two sons into bed. At the time, they were ages 7 and 10, which is about second and fifth grade. So young boys, they shared a room. And I was tucking them in after a typical day. School, probably an hour of homework, which is way too much for that age group, but that's how it is. And then I'm sure we drove off in all directions to a couple of activities for them. We made our way through dinner with probably some very questionable table manners, through the bath, and finally into bed. And as you can imagine, I'm ready to tuck in, read the stories, and be done with the day. But of course, it always takes longer than that. And we're reading stories and we're playing and laughing. And it's finally time to say goodnight. And my older son, Sam, who was 10 at the time, suddenly broke down in tears. And he was crying, saying, "I never have time to just play." And I was so surprised. Of course, I felt like a horrible mother. But I was thinking to myself about all the fun things he did. He didn't particularly hate school. He liked school. He did a lot of activities that he had signed himself up for: chorus, band. He played soccer. He was a Cub Scout, so they did little campouts and activities. He was on the safety patrol at school, which means he got to wear a cool belt and hang out with other cool kids. So to hear that he was so unhappy and not having enough time to play was a huge shock to me. But when I started to think about it, I thought about all those things he was doing and how those things were all adult-led, adult-supervised activities with strict parameters. You show up at this time, you possibly wear a certain uniform, you have to behave a certain way, you have to regulate your emotions, you need to do what the adults say, take turns, try to get better at this, try to learn more about that. That's not play, especially to a 10-year-old boy. And so the thing that had been engineered out of his life that I had not really realized was this time to just play as he wanted to goof around in his bedroom or have a friend over and goof around in the backyard, and to play a made-up game or to play something for an hour, to do his own activities autonomously instead of being told what to do and how to do it. So I started thinking about that. And then I started thinking about that I was feeling a little pressured too. My husband and I always felt too busy. We always felt like all we do is race from one thing to another. And when did parenting get this crazy? I get it if you've got teenagers, but when you have two boys ages 7 and 10, should you be driving around all over Kingdom Come to activities? Should you be sweating every grade? Should you be falling into bed every night at 9:30 exhausted? We would look at each other and say, this can't be right. But yet, everybody around us was doing the exact same thing. So it had just become normalized. And we felt, well, I guess this is just how it is in this day and age of parenting. We had just come to accept it. And what we had come to accept really was a very achievement focused, outcome focused way of raising children, in which you're not really letting them have a childhood in so much as you are preparing them to be adults, raising them to get into the best possible college they have, building their resume, basically treating them like little adults in training instead of children. So I started thinking about it. I thought, okay, summer's coming. What can I do? Let's change course. And I've always been kind of an independent type. At least I think I don't follow the crowd. So stepping off the merry-go-round seemed very comfortable to me. And I asked my kids, would you like to do nothing all summer? All the things we normally do, like the enrichment classes or the reading lists at the library or all these certain lessons, we don't have to do them. And they were thrilled. So I said, okay. I tried to get some other mothers to join me in this do nothing adventure, and nobody was interested. But that was all right. I felt like it was the right thing to do for my family, and I was ready to give it a try. So as I mentioned, I live in New Jersey. It's a small town. We have a town pool, which is nothing fancy. It's not a country club. It's a pool with some grounds around it, some picnic tables if you want to bring your lunch. And that was where I figured we would spend most of their days during the summer. It's a great place to be with other kids. And that is one of the biggest challenges of raising kids today is if your kids aren't in activities, how do they see friends? Because that's where all the other kids are. So at least at the pool, they could go see friends and they could play autonomously. I was there, but I was not hovering, and they were free to do and play however they wanted to. And when we weren't at the pool, they had friends over, they played in their room, they played in the living room, and they got bored. And that was okay. I knew there'd be boredom. I knew there would be whining. I knew there would be bickering. And there were all those things at a huge level. However, there was still a lot of fun and creativity and invention. If you asked me, what did they really do all day? I can promise you there were no Instagram worthy moments, or very few. It was very haphazard. There was a lot of let's put on a cape and run around the backyard. Let's make a pillow fort and then just walk away from it and let mom clean it up. Let's play Legos all over the living room floor. There was nothing that really pointed to anything like, wow, they're excelling to greatness with all this free play. But what there was a lack of stress. I could feel the whininess and the pushback that I would always get from them. I could feel that fading away. And about halfway through the summer, I remember thinking, okay, now I'm getting bored. Like, this is enough nothing. I need to do something fun. And I would say to them, you guys need sneakers. Let's go to the mall. We'll get some sneakers. Maybe we'll see a movie and have some lunch. And they would just look at me and say, do we have to? Can't we just play? Their capacity to have free time and to be bored and to play was so much bigger than I ever imagined that their capacity was. It was like if somebody said, I'm thirsty, could I have a glass of water? And then proceeded to drink 4 glasses of water in rapid succession, you would think, okay, they were really thirsty. And that's what it was like with their appetite for free time and play. I could not believe how endless their appetite for that kind of activity was, that kind of just self-led play and direction. The other thing I found out was that if they're playing on their own, there's no adults to fix things for them. And as they would make up the rules to games or play independently around the pool, inevitably things would happen. They get their feelings hurt, something bad happens, but they have to figure it out themselves. At one point, Jack was trying to get in on it. Jack was my younger one, 7 years old. He's trying to get in on a stickball game. And another kid said to him, no, you can't play, you stink. So in our stress-filled world, adults would immediately swoop into the situation, tell that kid he's mean, give Jack a turn at bat, and fix everything. But I knew that that was the type of thing that I was trying to step back from. And so I didn't do any of those things, even though I felt crummy about Jack having a bad experience. And I went off and tried to pitch Jack a few balls to see if he could get some practice in. That didn't feel right either. Finally, they all just went swimming, and the event got kind of swept over. But that night at dinner, Jack told us that later in the afternoon, he got a game of tag going, and the mean kid came over and wanted to play. And Jack said, "You can't play, you're mean." And the kid said, "Oh, well, I didn't really mean it, and I'm really sorry." And so Jack said, "Okay, now you can play." So they fixed it themselves. And that type of activity and learning was exactly the type of thing I was trying to make happen that summer, where it came organically from them and it wasn't something that I had to engineer.
What an incredible story, Pam. It is so, so true. Children just can't be little kids anymore. They
No,
can't just play outside, make up the rules. It's incredible how much adults are interfering
yes.
in their
And
children's childhood.
making up the rules is one of the greatest skills that you can develop. All that talent of negotiating and arguing and imagining how things should be, and then getting the rest of the group to agree with you. I feel like we could use a lot more of that in the world today, but our kids aren't learning it.
It's so crazy. So, what made you realize that being busy wasn't the same as being fulfilled?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think I think being busy and not being fulfilled is what made us realize it. We were busy and yet my son was crying.
Yeah.
Bill and I were busy and should have felt great about all the things that we were doing, and yet we did kind of feel like where did the fun go? How come we're not just like getting the giggles for no reason like we did when they were 4? Why do we feel like we're on a treadmill?
It's insane. So, why do you think so many parents fall into the overscheduling trap?
I think there's 2 reasons. I think the first one is fear. I think that parents, and I would include myself in this at many times, have just lost the confidence in their own ability to choose the paths for their children. And we feel so pressured to have our children be successful. There's a whole message, at least in America, there's a whole message going on that if you don't go to the right school and get the right job, you just don't have any chance at a happy life. You have to make a certain
Mhm.
level of income with a certain type of prestige. So we have that fear of raising that bar.
Mhm.
And then I also, we're very our generation is very achievement focused. And
Yes.
so I think that is the main reason. And I think the other thing too is just peer pressure. As I mentioned, I think that you don't want your kid to be isolated. And
Yeah.
so if you do choose a different way, will they have friends? Will they feel ostracized? That's a real concern.
Mm. So, what inspired you to write your book? Why can't we just play? What I did when I realized my kids were too busy. It's a brilliant title.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Um, I think, well, first of all, I am a writer. At the time that I conducted this summer with my kids, I was writing a humor column for a newspaper, and I was very interested in trends in family life and in our culture. And so as I was doing this summer, I was taking notes about what I was learning, and I was researching what did parenting look like in the 1950s and
Yeah.
how have we changed. So I wanted to use the experience as a book, first of all, to entertain other moms who probably are feeling the same way, and also to kind of examine how did we really get here, and should we be
Mm,
here.
I love it. Now, how did your children react when they realized that they were the inspiration behind the book?
They are not that interested in this book. They have read parts of it and they're proud of me for writing it. But I think that, and this kind of goes back to their own independence and autonomy. They're just living their lives and doing their thing. They do not really, I can tell you this, neither of them own a copy of this book or have ever. So I think that honestly, it's not that big a deal to them.
Yeah. So, what was the hardest part of writing such a personal parenting story?
Um, well, I would say two things. One of the things was just to be really honest, because
Mm,
I don't always, my kids and myself don't always come off perfect in this book. And I wanted it that way. I don't want to set myself up as any kind of expert or perfect mom. I can't stand people that try to do that. It's all hard and we're all struggling. So
yeah.
making sure that I stayed honest, but also I think making sure that I stayed really positive and encouraging,
Mm,
because I really want other parents to feel seen and also to feel empowered to follow their own instincts. Having a do nothing summer isn't for everybody. I'm sure there's many kids that would thrive on a schedule,
yes.
but it's really up to the mom and the dad to recognize what their own family needs and then have the courage to follow their instincts.
So, what is the key message that you hope every parent can take away after reading your book?
I would say to really look at your own children and look at their behavior. When they're little, like 7 and 10, they're going to be acting out. They can't really, well, my son did express, I never have time to play. But in
Mhm.
general, I think that their dissatisfaction or their anxiety or whatever difficulties they're having kind of present as bad behavior. They're whining, they're combative. So you kind of have to really look closely and be a little bit of a sleuth and try to understand and then adapt to try to figure out um, what your children really need. And that
Yeah,
doesn't mean making it easy for them. It just means being really present for what they need to grow.
what their needs are. So, did writing the book change your parenting even further, do you think?
Yes, it did. First of all, once that summer was over, I realized how much happier we all were with less on the schedule. And
Yeah.
so even though fall got busy again, I always made room for free time. I had a new respect for how much free time we all needed. Now, once
Yeah,
they get to be teens, that goes by the wayside because they make their own schedule. But up until high school, I really kept that rule.
I love that. So, what myths about successful parenting does your book challenge?
Well, I think the idea that you should be really academically focused, that you should be putting your child under a lot of pressure to achieve, to check all those boxes. I mean, not only is it harder on the kids, I think, forcing them into some kind of mold or maybe making them do a lot of things that aren't that important to them just for the
Mm,
sake of outward achievement, but also I think for parents, it robs us of a lot of joy.
mm,
I think being able to slow down and take your time and be comfortable with less achievement, less outcome focused activities is
yes.
really a richer way to live.
So, can you share one powerful story or a moment from the book that readers resonate with most?
Hmm. Um, I think probably the story of Sam crying and saying that he wouldn't play or didn't have time to play.
Mhm.
But I also have a story. Um, I One of the things we all hate to do is take our kids on errands.
Yes.
They hate it, we hate it, and I did take them on errands more, partially because I didn't have any childcare to leave them with, and I didn't have any activities that they were in. But there was one in particular where I took just Sam. Jack was busy with a friend, and I had a checkup with my OBGYN, and I brought
Mm,
Sam on the appointment. Well, so by now, he's 10 years old, but he's meeting the doctor that delivered him. And so he's old enough to kind of have a conversation and to understand who this doctor is.
right.
And it was really kind of a great moment of, wow, if I had parked him in an activity, he wouldn't have this moment. Like the three of us, myself, the doctor, and Sam, would
Mm,
not have a moment where we kind of saw like a timeline of things. Like you're meeting the doctor and you were a baby and here you are in the picture and now you're turning into a young man. And I kind of saw the light bulb go off for him about
Yes.
time and growth. That was something that never would have happened if he wasn't
I
with me.
love it. So, how do you balance giving advice without making parents feel guilty or judged?
I don't know. I try not to give advice. I try to just share my story because it's really hard. And I even say in the book I talk a lot about how much television my kids would watch during the
Yeah.
mornings, especially when I would be working. And you're not supposed to let your kids have that many screens and you're not supposed to, but we all are just doing the best we can. And I
Yeah.
I I think that we all need to try harder, but we all need to give ourselves a break. So if I'm giving advice, I mean it's much more from the lens of, hey, this is what worked for me. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll work for you.
So, what feedback have you received from parents who've applied some of your approach?
Um, the most feedback I get is that mothers feel um, a little bit more empowered and a little bit more relaxed because maybe they were already trying some of these things themselves, but
Yes.
it felt weird. Like maybe they didn't want to admit. I let my son quit that activity because he was too busy. I let my daughter not do that thing, whatever it is, because it was too competitive and it was stressing her out. But they maybe don't want to share that. And so by reading this book or hearing some of my story, it gives them a little grace to be like, well, okay, then that's an okay thing to do.
I like that. So, what does play truly mean to you now?
Hmm.
And how has that definition evolved since writing the book?
Well, play for children definitely means autonomous, self-led, self-directed, where they get to make the rules, and sometimes it takes as long, and to us adults it looks boring and pointless.
Yeah.
But I think that I think that respecting it, and if you can't even remembering how much that play was fun when you were a kid, it wasn't boring and pointless, it was really fun. It's funny, as an adult, I've had to get back in touch with, and I think a lot of adults do, like, what does play look like for us now?
Yes.
Especially because once you finish, you're working and raising your kids, there's not a lot of play time for
Yeah.
adults. And you once your kids go off and you're an empty nest, I feel like really you kind of have to get back in touch with that for yourself. What do I really enjoy doing? And give yourself permission to play.
It's so true. And in plays where the curiosity lies, problem solving, this is where
Hmm.
they figure out the rules of the world and they make up the rules as they go.
Yes, and also I think they discover their own talents. In playing, they discover what they like to do and what they don't like to do, what they're good at and not good at. And they get to discover it organically without somebody telling them, oh, you were good
Yeah.
at that or you weren't good at that. There's a lot of pressure. I don't know, in America, there's a lot of athletic pressure. They might start playing baseball at second grade, but before you know it, there's travel teams and private coaches. And so for a kid that might like to play baseball but might not be that good,
Yes.
they get out of the running really quickly. And it's kind of sad because if they had time to grow into it, they might really develop a lifelong passion for it. But they get kind of edged aside before they even get the chance.
Yeah. And I love the way your son handled the situation with the bully. It's almost like you gave him an opportunity to develop a life skill
Hmm.
where he set the boundaries around himself, put that bully in his place,
Hmm.
but forgiveness was there as well. He's like, this is not how we behave. Okay, you've said sorry, you can play with us.
Hmm.
It's such a beautiful example of what we should back away from to allow kids to develop these skills.
Yes. And the way he handled it really surprised me. Of course, I felt so proud of him and excited,
Mm.
but I think that we'd all be proud and excited when we see our kids handle something that we didn't expect that they would handle, that we thought we were going to have to fix for them. And then they do it themselves. And it's such a beautiful moment for everybody. It's great for the kids because they've just grown. They've just become confident.
Empowering.
It's so empowering. And for the parents too, what a relief to know that you don't have to handle everything, that your
Yeah.
kids can start to take over and start to
Yeah.
conduct some of these things themselves.
I love it. So, did you discover or uncover any research or expert insights while writing that surprised you?
Um, while I was writing it, I did a lot of research about childhood through the ages, and I definitely realized how helicopter and snowplow that we've become, which we knew anyway. But it was jarring to really read how laissez-faire earlier parenting was, and how little we expected of our children. Like they needed to have good hygiene and good manners and try their best in school. That was pretty much the end of it.
Yes.
But since writing the book and in the course of publicizing the book, I've come across a lot of research, and there is now a ton of research talking about how important play is, how overscheduling and helicoptering damages children. So that kind of came later. Like I just did this and lived it, and then later realized what was happening in our culture.
I love it. Now, looking back, is there anything you would add or expand on the book if you wrote a second edition?
Hmm. I toyed with writing a later edition to the teen years because the teen years are so different,
Difference,
because
yes.
they do take they do take over. They want to do all their own scheduling, and they want to hopefully they're finding their place in their activities, whatever they like to do, and they're pursuing those both academically and outside of academically. But it's also hard because there's a lot more dangers in the teen years, things that you have to be afraid of when they start driving, and of course drugs and alcohol are everywhere. And so it's almost like you are thrilled to be letting them go, but
But,
you it's also terrifying.
and how are you finding the one word answers? I have two boys, and when they hit the teens, they'd come home from school. It's like, so how was school? Fine. What did you get up to? Nothing. Boys are difficult. They don't
Yes.
talk.
Yeah, they don't talk. Okay, so here's a couple of things. Talk in the car. Have you noticed that? So
Yeah.
find some excuses to drive places with them.
Mm.
And talking when you're not looking at each other and driving, we have some of our best conversations in the car. I've heard other parents say that too. So
I
that's
used
one
to
of
trap
them.
my boys. So we lived, if they got on the train to go to school, to take them 12 minutes.
Hmm.
But I used to drive my boys to school every single day. It took me an hour there and an hour back because of traffic. And people would say to me, "Why do you bother? Just put them on the train." I'm like, this is the only time they talk to me. So
I love that.
yeah.
And I love how you talk about, okay, but here's a perfect example. You said no to the obvious choice that everybody else would have done because
Yeah.
and it didn't make sense to anyone else, but you knew it
No.
was the exact right thing for your family.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And that's like, what's more beautiful than that? That's
Oh,
just great. But yeah, the one word answers are hard. It gets a little easier. And the other thing, I don't know about you, but our boys always like to play games, board games and card
mhm.
games. And I feel like conversation would come out during
During the
games.
games.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes. That's good.
that was another avenue.
Now, if I could teleport you back with my last two questions, and you could go back to the younger you, the young woman who
Mm,
had her kids figuring this parenting thing out,
yeah.
if you could go back and give her three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would
Hmm.
those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Um, I think one would be, don't let your kids be too busy. Let them be bored and somehow find a way to not get upset when they whine how bored they are. Another would be to, I did this, but I would say it anyway, to cherish the time that you have with them. And even the quote unquote boring times, like doing errands in the car or cleaning up their room or weeding the garden. Those things, Jerry Seinfeld calls those garbage times. Those garbage times yield a lot of great connection moments. We all love the big moments, but those small ones are really great.
Yeah, they are magical. My kids remind me of stuff that I have completely forgotten. Very small, insignificant incidents. And they're like, Mom, do you remember when we did this? I'm like, what? I can't remember, but they do. You're so
Isn't
right.
that funny?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love it. Now let's teleport into the future. And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you.
Let's
She's
hope.
sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren,
Oh,
whoever's with you at the end. If you could teleport into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point,
hmm.
what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I would say, boy, you've been lucky. If you have these two children and all these grandchildren and you made it this long with hopefully not hurting anybody and helping to make the world a little bit of a better place, then good for you. I hope you inspire other people.
That is so beautiful. I love asking women that question because a lot of us forget that the wise woman is already in us, Pam.
Hmm.
She is that quiet voice that whispers, write that book, go left, go right.
Mm-hmm.
And you listen to your promptings. She's guided you. You're inspiring so many other parents with this book now. So thank you for trusting her quiet voice.
That was a great question.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a young parent, a young mom who's struggling, trying to find what to do to fill the time for your kids, here's some really good advice. Just let them be. Let them figure it out. Give them a day of nothing.
Mhm.
Let them learn how to play again. And if you know a friend, a relative, a colleague who has a young child who's also struggling, please tag them on this video. Share this on your social media so we can reach more young parents as well. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Pam, thank you so much and good luck with this book.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now,
Bye
everybody.
bye.